Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's midday Western U.S. regional forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. We begin with an animation that we talked about in Monday's video, and this animation shows the flow and the jet stream level here across North America and the surrounding oceans. And what we do see here is that our omega pattern is still in play, and that is certainly a pattern, again, high with two lows flanking it here. This is certainly a very stagnant pattern. Our jet stream is way to the north here through Alaska, coming through the Canadian prairies. And there's a large ridge still in place over the southeast. And that particular pattern is one we got to figure out when it breaks down and how it breaks down. And that'll be a focus of what this video is going to bring. But as long as the Pacific Ocean stays as stagnant as it is right here, well, this is what it's going to do to our temperatures across much of the western part of the United States. We can see here that we even have heat advisories going on right now in parts of eastern Washington here. Might be some of the warmest temperatures of the year, with temperatures climbing into the triple-digit range. We're going to take a closer look at that in a few moments. But that stagnant pattern means temperatures will remain high across much of the western region, and the monsoonal flow will continue to go here kind of around that upper level ridge based here in the Four Corners states. So let's take a look at what temperatures are doing here, starting off in the northwest. We can see that through the Columbia Basin and through parts of Oregon, getting over into the Snake River Valley, temperatures today will be getting to that century mark. We're going to be seeing upper 90s, lower 100s across a wide swath of the Pacific Northwest. Even over in Montana, temperatures shooting way up into the lower 90s here. As we go from Tuesday into Wednesday, we still see the high heat is on, so it's staying warm. But you're going to notice that once I get past Wednesday toward Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we start to see the heat, the relief coming in from the heat. And so we go from these upper 90s, lower 100s, such that by the time we get into Friday and Saturday, we're back down into the 80s, which means something's dislodging that pattern that we had out there in the Pacific. And we're going to be bringing one of those troughs in to cool things down and also bring us a chance for some end of the week and weekend rain. Sunday's high temperatures much cooler than we're going to see here in the middle of this week, with temperatures in the 80s, middle 80s in places. And then back Monday, this is back much closer to normal here as we start our new week. So that's what we're expecting here in the near term. Let's slide a little farther south and take a look at those temperatures next. This is California. So we can see we're going to be approaching, again, triple-digit temperatures throughout the day on Tuesday, stretching from the Sacramento Valley all the way down to, to the San Joaquin. And then, of course, in the desert, temperatures ranging in general here from 103 to 110 degrees, so quite warm. So that's what we've got here starting us off on Tuesday. Let's watch this again here. Whoops. Let's watch this again and play out the rest of the week. So Tuesday, Wednesday temperatures, we start to see the cool down in the Sacramento Valley first, although we stay above the 95-degree mark in much of the San Joaquin Valley. But take a look at this. Wednesday into Thursday, got some of that same relief coming in as that upper level trough sneaks into the Pacific Northwest. So we see there now we're getting into the low to mid 90s. Same thing as we get into Friday, looking like a very nice end of the week for much of the Central Valley of California. And then again, sorry, I skipped Saturday there. There's Saturday again. Very nice temperatures in through this area for this time of year. Going from there over to Sunday, it'll be early next week that we start to see the heat rebuilding, just like we saw in the Pacific Northwest, much kind of back more toward what we're expecting for normal temperatures this time of year. So that's kind of our detailed look at what temperatures are doing here. And as you saw me flash this image a moment ago, one of the things that is fantastic about the fact that we have spent much of this summer avoiding long duration serious heat is, look at how green things still look from space. Look at the lack of fire activity. And as far as I can tell, in terms of large fires visible from space, we just have a couple, one here and one here in Washington and on the Washington, British Columbia border. It's amazing to see such a smoke-free view from space, and I love it, and I'm sure everybody out west loves seeing this. So if we take a look at the pattern adjustment over the coming days, I want to do a little bit of model comparison here. I think this is important to see. Models are very clear, both of them, that this trough will be coming through at the end of the week. So finally, we're breaking down that omega pattern at the end of the week, bringing in the first trough. And what's helping that out is this bigger ridge over Greenland is finally starting to dislodge itself a little bit farther toward the south and west as well. So this just gets the pattern unstuck, hopefully. So that's the cool down we're experiencing toward the end of the week and weekend. That'll also be the next chance at rain for the Pacific Northwest. Well, what do we see as we get out to day 10? There is some model differences here. The European model is keeping a much broader ridge stretched out basically encompassing Texas to California, whereas the GFS over here wants to bring in a broader trough into the Pacific Northwest, and that shoves this ridge more into New Mexico and Colorado and Texas, something a bit more like this. And these differences, while they may appear subtle, well, they mean a lot when it comes to the temperature and precipitation forecasting. Getting out to day 15, this is where there's major model discrepancy. While they generally agree as to a ridge event trying to set up between the Aleutian Islands and just south of the main part of Alaska, both also try to bring in in general, more troughing here into the Pacific Northwest, although this isn't much colder than average. The difference is where the ridge is going to be set up here. You can see that in the GFS, it's much further to the east than it is in the European model. And the differences here are going to keep California much warmer according to the European model. Now, based off of some recent performance, I have to say that the European model probably has a better handle on this pattern. And while these differences will be slight, in other words, these two model runs are not, way off from one another. It's important to notice those differences. Because of that, though, let's just take a look at what we're expecting in terms of evapotranspiration. The heat early this week suggesting that parts here of the Columbia Basin being able to evaporate about 2 to 2.5 inches of water out of the soil over the next week, and much of the same here for the Sacramento, and San Joaquin Valley. Of course, over the desert, much higher evapotranspiration rates, but that is expected. Okay, Snake River Valley, you get in there at about 2 inches of evapotranspiration this upcoming week as well. So these rates are not extreme, which is what I want you to see. Despite some of the early week heat, it's some of the cooler weather at the end that's helping to make those look a little bit cooler there. So let's take a look at this. This is days 5 through 10. So we're looking here at the end of this week into the beginning of next week. That's when that trough sneaks through, cooling things down. So pretty well resolved there. And then getting you out to days 10 through 15. Remember, the European model wants to keep the broader ridge out west, which means California, throughout much of the day 5 through day 15 time period, you will be experiencing above average temperatures, as will a lot of the Intermountain West, whereas the Northwest probably gets a bit of a break from some of the heat that they're going to be experiencing at the early part of this week. To show you some new long-range data, and I'll certainly be talking about this tomorrow in my long-range update, this takes us out to the end of the month, and we are in general kind of doing our best to keep the jet stream way up in Canada, which is typical for this time of year. And that's going to keep much of the United States with temperatures as we finish out the month of August looking above average. So a warm finish to the month. But as we look longer term, there's a few things I want to discuss, okay? First, what's precipitation doing? We've kind of avoided that at the beginning. Let's now get into it. We can see that in the day here, we are watching widely scattered showers and storms still coming around the upper level ridge that's sitting over the Four Corner States. And they'll get into parts of Oregon, but it's also coming into parts of Idaho and Montana. Meanwhile, Four Corner States, just another day of convective activity while that ridge is in place. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. We're going to start at 6 a.m. on Tuesday and run you all the way out here through the next couple of days through Thursday afternoon. And you can just see the presence of that upper level ridge bringing in the monsoonal moisture. Watch it again here. Widely scattered showers and thunderstorms through much of the Intermountain West, getting up into Idaho, up into eastern Oregon. Watch it again one more time. And this is certainly an active time period for these showers and thunderstorms, all right? Now, it won't be until the end of the week that we bring in a better chance at rainfall for the Pacific Northwest and California. You're going to stay dry. Much of this precipitation, of course, stays in the mountains here. So it's going to stay out of the Central Valley of California. I want to draw your attention to one interesting thing here. As this next surge of monsoonal moisture comes through, watch parts of Arizona as I play this. Can you actually see a bit of circulation? This is a mesoscale convective vortex. That's what we call this. It's basically just created its own center of low pressure, and the storms are going to be kind of circulating around it. The good news is that can bring some locally heavy rain. I say good and bad. It's good to get that heavy rain this time of year, but bad in terms of the flash flooding potential. But widely scattered showers and storms as we progress, again, through the next 60 hours or so. Beyond that, I'm going to play out for you the European model here. I'm going to pause this toward the end of the week. So let's get through Thursday, through Friday, and now into Friday night and Saturday. At this point, that upper level trough is sneaking in. So you can see that throughout the day on Saturday, our best chance at widely scattered showers and thunderstorms as that trough finally comes in could hit Northern California, but certainly Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and then parts of Montana will be getting in on this rainfall. So see there, that's Saturday night into Sunday morning. Now, all that before that low pressure system gets into the Canadian prairies and becomes a more robust central North American low pressure system. So it's got to come off the coast first. After that, things look relatively dry again. And again, dry season, we would expect this. All right. Putting it all together through next Tuesday, you can see the widely scattered showers and storms with the monsoon in through this area. And a lot of this precipitation that you see here is coming through this weekend. And that is the trough that is sneaking through at that time. All right. To finish this up, I want to at least give you some perspective on week 2. We've got decent model agreement about what's going on in the Pacific. You can see wetter than average conditions here and wetter north of the Pacific Northwest. Same thing showing up in the GFS model. You're not noticing very large precipitation deviations here because we're in the heart of the dry season. But there's some suggestion that once we get into week 2, we could be seeing a slowing down of the southwestern monsoon, and that is primarily due to the flattening out of the ridge, which we talked about earlier. In the longer term, some things that I really want to be looking out for here. We generally say that whenever we see such a large area of above average ocean temperatures here in the Gulf of Alaska, that tends to stagnate the pattern across the Pacific for a while. I want to combine that by showing you also what's going on with sea ice. You can see up here, sea ice extent is relatively low here in the Barents Sea and in the Bering Strait as well. And what's important about that is when we tend to get a lot of sea ice in that area, it tends to want to shove more ridges up into this region. So to show you where sea ice currently sits, we'll take a look at this. You can see a lot of blue water there. This again is Alaska. A lot of blue water here extending into the Arctic, and normally that has quite a bit of ice on it. To tell you what I mean by normal, let me just show you here where 2019 currently sits over the last 4 decades here. It is currently sitting at one of its lowest extents on record. This research and observations coming from a colleague of mine, Zach Labe, who does a great job understanding Arctic conditions. So that's going to be important for later on this fall and what it might mean for the West Coast temperatures. This tends to give us a warm fall whenever we have low sea ice extent in this particular part of the ocean. And finally, just to wrap up with one last thing, the longer-term pattern will be complicated by what is going on in the Western Pacific. We currently have 1, 2, 3, 4 tropical systems we're watching. You can see that these 3 will be recurving north. And when they get up here into the flow of the jet stream, they can dislodge anything we've got going on in the Gulf of Alaska in about 15 days. And at the same time, they could also block up the pattern to the west of there. So these are the wild cards. We're going to keep a close eye on them, just keep you up to date with each video we put out this week as to what's going on here in the Western Pacific. So a lot to take in there, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up right there. We at Nutrien Ag Solutions hope you look forward to all the content coming out at my.nutrienagsolutions.com this week. Have a great week, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.